Looking back now, it's almost painful how oblivious I was. But that's the thing about illusions, they're convincing, seamless, and designed to fool you. My life with Anna felt like one of those warm family sitcoms you'd watch growing up. The ones where even when something went wrong, it always got wrapped up neatly by the end of the episode. Anna and I had been married for 12 years. I still remember our wedding day like it was yesterday. She looked radiant in a lace gown, her hair pinned up with a delicate clip that belonged to her grandmother. Her smile that day, it wasn't just happiness, it was the kind of light you wanted to bask in forever. We danced to Van Morrison's Crazy Love, and I swear, I could feel every word of that song carved into my soul. Fast forward to today, and we had built a life that most people would envy. Our 2 kids, Emily and Jake, were the center of our universe. Emily, at 10, had Anna's wit and charm, always the star of her class, while Jake, 6, was all energy and curiosity, his laughter filling every corner of our home. Our mornings were a controlled chaos. Anna would always be the first to wake up, even though she was the night owl of the 2 of us. She'd shuffle into the kitchen, hair messy and still half asleep, but somehow managed to get the kids' breakfasts ready with an efficiency that bordered on magic. I'd join her a little later, after wrestling with the temptation of the snooze button, and we'd share quick, quiet moments before the kids descended like a hurricane. Anna had this way of making even the smallest things feel special. Pancake Sundays weren't just pancakes, they were a ritual. She'd let Emily help with the mixing, her face smudged with flour, while Jake insisted on flipping the pancakes, always leaving at least one half burned. Anna would laugh, ruffle his hair, and call him Chef Jake while I brewed the coffee and grumbled about the mess they were making. But deep down, I loved it. I loved all of it. Our evenings were calmer. After the whirlwind of school pickups, homework, and dinner, we'd settle into our routines. Anna would read to the kids before bed, her voice soft and animated, while I handled the dishes. Then, once the house was quiet, it was our time. We'd sit on the couch, her feet tucked under her, a glass of wine in her hand, and some cheesy crime drama on the TV. She'd poke fun at the plot holes, and I'd tease her about her obsession with true crime podcasts. It wasn't grand or extravagant, but it was us. I trusted Anna implicitly. She was the vibrant one in our relationship, the one who lit up every room she walked into. People gravitated toward her, drawn by her energy and quick wit. Me. I was the more intense one, the guy who sometimes acted before he thought things through, but she balanced me out. She was my anchor, my partner, my everything. That's why, when she told me she wanted a night out with her girlfriends, I didn't bat an eye. She deserved it. Go, I said, smiling at her as she slipped on a pair of heels and adjusted her dress in the hallway mirror. Have fun. You've earned it. Anna laughed, leaning in to kiss me on the cheek. Don't wait up, she teased, grabbing her purse. The sound of her laughter echoed as she walked out the door, leaving behind the faintest trace of her perfume, a blend of vanilla and something citrusy. That night, after putting the kids to bed, I sat on the couch with a beer, flipping through channels. The house felt quiet, too quiet. I missed her, even though I knew she'd be back in a few hours. That's the kind of love we had, or at least, that's what I thought we had. Looking back, there were signs, little things that didn't seem important at the time. Like how Anna had been spending more time on her phone lately, her smile flickering as she texted someone. Or how she'd started going to the gym more often, even though she'd always said she hated working out. But I brushed it all off. People change, evolve, it didn't mean anything, right? If I had known then what I know now, maybe I would have asked her more questions. Maybe I would have paid closer attention. But that's the thing about trust. It's not just given, it's a choice you make every single day. And until that moment, I'd never had a reason to question it. That night was the last time I remember feeling completely at peace. The last time I believed, wholeheartedly, that my life was as perfect as it seemed. When Anna said she wanted a night out with her girlfriends, I barely gave it a second thought. It wasn't out of the ordinary, she'd gone out with them plenty of times before. Usually, they'd hit a local bar, sip on margaritas, and spend hours laughing and sharing stories about their lives. Anna always came back energized, smiling like she'd just been reminded of all the reasons she loved life. It was one of the many things I admired about her, how she could find joy in the smallest moments. That night, though, something felt different. She'd spent more time getting ready than usual. Standing in front of the mirror, Anna tried on outfit after outfit, discarding each one with a slight frown. Her indecision caught my attention, mostly because it was so unlike her. Normally, she could throw something on and look effortlessly stunning. When she finally settled on a sleek black dress that hugged her in all the right places, she glanced at me for approval. "You look amazing," I said, and I meant it. She smiled, but there was something in her expression I couldn't quite read. A hint of hesitation, maybe? Or was I imagining things? Her heels clicked against the floor as she moved around the house, gathering her things. She spritzed on her favorite perfume, vanilla with a hint of orange blossom, and grabbed her purse. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when she came to kiss me goodbye. "Don't wait up," she said lightly, though her tone carried a playful edge. "Love you." "Love you too," I replied, watching her walk out the door. The faint scent of her perfume lingered in the air, and I found myself smiling. I trusted her completely, and the idea of her out having fun with her friends didn't bother me. Still, as I sat alone in the quiet house, something gnawed at me. Maybe it was the way she'd lingered at the mirror, or how she'd spent so much time perfecting her makeup. It wasn't that I doubted her, but my mind couldn't quite shake the feeling that there was more to the evening than she'd let on. I texted her around 9 p.m., a simple, "Hope you're having fun." She didn't reply, but that wasn't unusual. Anna always said she hated being glued to her phone during a night out. I let it go, focusing on the movie I'd picked out to pass the time. The kids were already asleep, and the house felt unusually quiet without her energy filling the space. Around 11, I sent another text, "Everything okay?" No response. That little voice in my head, the one I usually ignored, started whispering again. "She's probably just busy," I told myself, trying to push the unease aside. But when midnight came and went with no word from her, I found myself staring at my phone, debating whether to call. I didn't want to be that guy, the controlling husband who couldn't handle his wife being out of sight for a few hours. By 1 a.m., she still wasn't home. I wasn't angry, just confused. This wasn't like Anna. She was always good about checking in, even if just to let me know she was okay. I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt, figuring she'd lost track of time. Finally, around 1:30, I heard the familiar sound of her keys jingling as she unlocked the front door. I stayed on the couch, pretending to be engrossed in the late-night sports highlights, but out of the corner of my eye, I watched her slip off her heels and set her purse down. "Hey," she said softly, her voice warm but tired. "You're still up?" "Yeah," I replied, trying to keep my tone casual. "How was it?" "Good," she said quickly, avoiding my eyes as she headed toward the kitchen to grab a glass of water. "We just stayed out later than I planned." I nodded, not wanting to press her. She didn't offer any more details, and I didn't ask. But as I watched her from the couch, something about her felt off. The way she moved, the slight flush on her cheeks, it wasn't like her usual post-night out glow. There was a tension in her shoulders, a guardedness I hadn't seen before. She didn't come to sit with me like she normally would. Instead, she mumbled something about being exhausted and disappeared upstairs to bed. I sat there for a while, staring at the darkened TV screen, the feeling of unease settling deeper into my chest. It wasn't just the late hour, or her quiet demeanor, it was the way she'd avoided meeting my gaze, the way she'd slipped out of the room so quickly. I told myself I was overthinking it. Anna loved me, and I loved her. We had a good marriage, a solid foundation. There was no reason to doubt her. And yet, as I finally climbed into bed beside her, the question lingered in my mind, unspoken but persistent: was there something she wasn't telling me? The next few days passed in a blur of routine. Morning chaos with the kids, long hours at work, and quiet evenings spent trying to unwind on the couch. On the surface, nothing seemed out of place. Anna was her usual self, cheerful, attentive with the kids, affectionate with me. If anything, she seemed more engaged than ever, asking about my day and cooking my favorite meals. But there was something beneath the surface, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I brushed it off at first. Maybe she was just feeling guilty for staying out so late. I mean, it wasn't like she'd done anything wrong. She was entitled to have fun, to blow off steam with her friends. But as the days turned into weeks, I started noticing little things, tiny cracks in the facade of our perfect life. It started with her phone. Anna had always been glued to her phone, like most people these days. She used it for everything: recipes, social media, texting friends. But now, she seemed more protective of it. I'd catch her tilting the screen away when I walked into the room, or quickly locking it when she saw me glance her way. It wasn't overt, but it was enough to make my stomach twist. One evening, while we were watching TV, her phone buzzed with a notification. She picked it up, read the message, and smiled, one of those soft, private smiles that used to be reserved for me. I didn't say anything, but I felt the words forming on my tongue: "Who's that?" I swallowed them down, not wanting to sound paranoid. Anna was allowed to have her own life, her own friends. I trusted her, didn't I? But the doubts kept growing. One Saturday, I was cleaning out the car when I found a receipt tucked under the passenger seat. It was from a trendy little restaurant downtown, one we'd never been to together. The date on the receipt caught my eye: the same night she'd gone to the club with her friends. My heart sank. I tried to rationalize it: maybe they'd gone there before hitting the club. But something about it didn't sit right with me. I decided not to mention it, unsure if I was ready to hear her explanation. The next time she went out, I paid closer attention. She spent even more time getting ready than usual, carefully curling her hair and applying makeup with precision. As she walked out the door, I noticed the faintest hint of a nervous energy about her. Or maybe I was imagining it. Either way, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. When she came home late that night, she was quieter than usual. She kissed me goodnight and went straight to bed, leaving me alone in the living room with my thoughts. My mind raced with possibilities, each one more painful than the last. Was I being paranoid? Or was there something she wasn't telling me? The breaking point came a week later, when my best friend, Alex, called me out of the blue. "Hey, Mike," he said, his tone hesitant. "Can we talk?" "Sure," I replied, sensing the tension in his voice. "What's up?" "It's about Anna," he began, and my heart stopped. "I saw her the other night. At the movie theater." I frowned. She didn't mention going to the movies. Who was she with? Alex hesitated, and in that moment, I knew. "She wasn't alone," he said finally. "There was a guy with her. I didn't recognize him, but... Mike, they didn't look like friends." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt the blood drain from my face, my stomach churning with a mix of anger and disbelief. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sure," Alex said. I didn't want to say anything, but I thought you deserved to know. I thanked him, hanging up the phone with trembling hands. My mind was a storm of emotions: shock, anger, confusion. I wanted to confront Anna right then and there, demand to know the truth. But a small voice in the back of my mind urged me to wait. I needed proof. If I accused her without evidence, she'd just deny it, and we'd end up in a screaming match that solved nothing. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I started paying closer attention. I kept an eye on her phone, her schedule, her little habits. And the more I watched, the more I saw. There were the late nights, the unexplained absences, the messages she quickly dismissed when I walked into the room. There were the subtle changes in her behavior, the way she avoided my eyes when I asked about her day, the way she seemed to pull away when I reached for her hand. I felt like I was losing her, piece by piece, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. But I couldn't let go, not without knowing the truth. When you've spent over a decade with someone, you think you know them. Every smile, every sigh, every little quirk, it's like a map you've memorized. But as I started watching Anna more closely, it was like the map had been redrawn overnight, the landmarks replaced with something unrecognizable. I felt like I was navigating a stranger. The doubts that Alex's call had planted in my mind were growing, taking root in places I didn't want to acknowledge. I told myself I was being ridiculous, that I was making mountains out of molehills. But the evidence was piling up, piece by piece, until it became impossible to ignore. The turning point came when I decided to check her phone. It was a Saturday afternoon. Anna had taken Emily and Jake to a birthday party, leaving me alone at the house. As I cleaned up the kitchen, I noticed her phone on the counter. She'd forgotten it, a rare occurrence. I stared at it for a long moment, the internal debate raging in my mind. Was it wrong to invade her privacy? Or was it necessary to protect my family, to protect myself? In the end, curiosity, and fear, won out. Her phone was unlocked, which was unusual. Anna was always careful about locking it, another detail I dismissed as nothing before. My hands shook as I opened her messages, scrolling through conversations with friends, co-workers, and acquaintances. Most of it was harmless, mundane, until I saw a name I didn't recognize, Victor. The messages were casual at first. They talked about work, about life. But as I scrolled further, the tone shifted. The words became more personal, more intimate. Victor, thinking about you today. Wish I could see you. Anna, me too. Last night was incredible. My heart pounded as I read those words, the blood rushing in my ears. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The Anna I knew, the Anna I trusted with my life, wouldn't do this. But there it was, in black and white, undeniable proof that something was happening. I kept reading, piecing together their conversations like a puzzle. They talked about meeting up, about stolen moments and secret places. One message from Victor stood out, sent just a few days earlier, can't wait for Friday. The usual spot. Friday. The night she'd gone out with her girlfriends. My stomach turned as I realized the restaurant receipt I'd found wasn't for a night out with friends, it was for a night with him. I set the phone down, my hands trembling. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to storm out of the house and confront her right then and there. But I knew I couldn't. Not yet. I needed more. If I confronted her now, she'd deny it. She'd twist the truth, make me feel like I was the one in the wrong. I had to be sure. That's when I decided to take things a step further. I bought a small, discreet camera online, the kind designed to blend in with everyday objects. It arrived 2 days later, and I spent an entire evening setting it up in the living room, hidden among the books on the shelf. I hated myself for doing it, for turning our home into a surveillance zone. But I couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling in my gut. I needed to know. The first few days, there was nothing. Anna went about her routine as usual, playing with the kids, cooking dinner, chatting with me about her day. I started to doubt myself, wondering if I'd misread everything. But then, one night, I caught her sitting on the couch, her phone in hand, smiling at something on the screen. She typed quickly, her thumbs flying over the keyboard, and then she laughed softly to herself. I checked the footage later, my heart pounding. The camera didn't show her screen, but it caught the smile, the laugh, the way her cheeks flushed slightly as she typed. It was the kind of reaction I hadn't seen from her in a long time. Not with me. And then there was the call. It happened late one night, after I'd gone to bed. Anna had stayed downstairs, saying she wanted to finish the movie she was watching. I woke up to the faint sound of her voice, hushed and urgent. I crept to the top of the stairs, straining to hear her words. "I miss you too," she said softly. "I hate how complicated this is. I wish," her voice trailed off, thick with emotion. I didn't need to hear the rest. I knew who she was talking to. That night, as I lay awake beside her, I felt the weight of betrayal settle over me like a heavy blanket. The trust we'd built over 12 years was crumbling, and I didn't know if it could ever be rebuilt. I wanted to confront her, to demand answers, but I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to understand the full extent of what was happening before I made my move. For the first time in my life, I felt completely powerless. Every time I looked at Anna, the weight of her betrayal hit me like a freight train. She still moved through the house like nothing was wrong, laughing with the kids, teasing me about my obsession with grilling, and curling up beside me on the couch at night. But her warmth felt hollow now, like an act designed to keep me in the dark. I couldn't play along anymore. It was a Friday night when I decided to confront her. The kids were asleep, and the house was quiet except for the faint hum of the dishwasher. Anna was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone with a glass of wine in hand. I stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her, trying to remember the last time I'd felt completely at peace in her presence. "Anna," I said, my voice firmer than I expected. She looked up, startled. "What's up?" she asked, setting her phone down. Her smile faltered when she saw the look on my face. "We need to talk." Her expression shifted, a flicker of apprehension crossing her features. "About what?" I sat down across from her, placing a folder on the table. Inside were screenshots of her messages with Victor, the restaurant receipt, and stills from the hidden camera. My hands trembled as I opened the folder, laying the evidence in front of her. "What's this?" she asked, her voice shaky. "Proof," I said quietly. "Proof that you've been lying to me. That you've been seeing someone else." Anna stared at the papers, her face pale. For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then, slowly, she pushed the folder away. "Mike, Don't," I cut her off, my voice rising. "Don't lie to me. Don't try to twist this around. I want the truth, Anna. All of it." Tears welled in her eyes, and she shook her head. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. "I swear, Mike, I didn't. Didn't mean for what to happen," I demanded, slamming my hand on the table. "You've been sneaking around behind my back, lying to me, to the kids. How long has this been going on?" She flinched at my tone, her tears spilling over. "A few months," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "It started the night I went to the club. I wasn't planning on anything, I met him, and we talked, Anne." "And what?" I pressed, my anger boiling over. "You just decided to throw away 12 years of marriage for some guy you met at a bar." "It wasn't like that," she cried, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was feeling lost, Mike. Stuck. I needed something, and he. Don't you dare blame this on me," I snapped, cutting her off. "You were feeling lost? Stuck? So your solution was to cheat on me?" Anna broke down, her sobs filling the silence between us. For a moment, I just sat there, watching her, my emotions a storm of anger, pain, and disbelief. This was the woman I'd loved, the mother of my children, and she betrayed me in the worst possible way. Finally, I stood up, pacing the kitchen as I tried to collect my thoughts. "So what happens now?" I asked, my voice cold. "Are you in love with him?" She shook her head violently. "No," she whispered. "It wasn't love. It was just something I needed at the time. But it's over, Mike. I ended it." I turned to face her, my chest heaving with anger. "Do you expect me to believe that? That it's over? That you're suddenly ready to come back to this marriage like nothing happened?" I'll do anything, she pleaded, standing up and reaching for me. I'll go to counseling, I'll prove it to you, just please, Mike, don't give up on us. I stepped back, her touch feeling foreign and unwelcome. You don't get to decide that, I said harshly. You destroyed my trust, Anna. And without trust, there's nothing left. Her sobs grew louder, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. Instead, I walked out of the kitchen, heading upstairs to the spare bedroom. I needed space, time to think about what came next. As I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. Was there any way to fix this? Did I even want to try? Or was this the end of the life we'd built together? If you were in Mike's shoes, would you consider giving Anna a second chance? Or would this betrayal be unforgivable? Let me know your thoughts. The days that followed felt like walking through a fog. My world, once steady and predictable, was now fractured. Anna tried to reach out to me, texts, calls, tearful apologies whispered when the kids weren't around. I ignored most of them, retreating into my own thoughts, trying to untangle the mess she'd made of our life. For the first time in our marriage, I slept in the guest room. Emily and Jake noticed, of course. Kids are more perceptive than we give them credit for. Emily asked me one night why I wasn't sleeping in the big bed with Mom. I mumbled something about needing a little space, but the look in her eyes told me she wasn't convinced. Anna kept up appearances for the kids, but I could see the cracks in her facade. She'd always been the rock of our family, the one who kept everything running smoothly. Now, she was distracted, withdrawn. I caught her crying in the bathroom more than once, and each time, I felt a pang of guilt. Not because I thought she didn't deserve it, but because I hated what this was doing to our family. I tried to keep my distance, to give myself time to think, but Anna wasn't about to let me off that easily. One evening, after the kids were in bed, she cornered me in the living room. Mike, please, she said, her voice trembling. We need to talk. I sighed, rubbing a hand over my face. I don't know if I'm ready for that. I know I hurt you, she said, tears pooling in her eyes. I know I betrayed your trust. But I love you, Mike. I love our family. I can't lose you. Her words hung in the air, heavy and desperate. I wanted to believe her, to believe that love was enough to fix this. But every time I thought about her with Victor, about the lies she'd told, the walls went back up. Do you even understand what you've done? I asked, my voice low but sharp. You didn't just hurt me, Anna. You put everything we've built at risk, our family, our kids. How am I supposed to trust you after this? She nodded, wiping at her tears. I don't expect it to happen overnight. I know it's going to take time, maybe a lot of time. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes, Mike. Counseling, therapy, anything. Just, please don't walk away. I stared at her, searching her face for some sign of the woman I'd fallen in love with. She looked broken, remorseful, but was that enough? Could we ever get back to the life we had before? I don't know if I can forgive you, I said finally. Not right now. Maybe not ever. Her face crumpled, and for a moment, I thought she might collapse. But she steadied herself, taking a deep breath. I'll wait, she said. However long it takes. I'll wait. Her words didn't bring me comfort, but they did give me pause. Part of me wanted to push her away, to tell her it was over and be done with it. But another part of me, the part that remembered the good times, the love we'd shared, wasn't ready to let go. Over the next few weeks, we tried to navigate the fragile new normal. Anna suggested counseling, and though I was hesitant, I agreed to go. The first session was awkward, with both of us fumbling through our feelings, but the therapist was patient. She asked questions that cut to the heart of the issue, forcing us to confront the emotions we'd been avoiding. Anna spoke about feeling lost, about wanting to escape the monotony of our routine. She admitted that meeting Victor had given her a sense of excitement she hadn't felt in years, but she swore it had never been about love. It was a mistake, she said, her voice thick with regret. A terrible, selfish mistake. I listened, my emotions swinging wildly between anger and sadness. It was hard to reconcile the woman sitting across from me with the one who had betrayed me. But as much as I hated what she'd done, I couldn't deny that I still cared about her. The kids, blissfully unaware of the full extent of what was happening, became my anchor. Emily's school projects, Jake's soccer games, they gave me a reason to keep going, to focus on something other than the chaos in my marriage. Anna threw herself into being the perfect mom, planning family outings and volunteering at the kids' schools. It was almost painful to watch, knowing it was partly an attempt to make up for her mistakes. One evening, as we sat across from each other at the kitchen table, she reached for my hand. "Mike," she said softly, "I know I can't undo what I've done. But I want to rebuild this. I want to rebuild us." I looked at her, at the hope in her eyes, and felt the weight of the decision pressing down on me. Part of me wanted to believe her, to take her hand and start over. But another part of me, the part that had been shattered by her betrayal, wasn't sure if it was possible. "I need time," I said finally, pulling my hand away. "I need time to figure out if this is something I can live with." She nodded, her expression a mix of relief and sorrow. "Take all the time you need," she said. "I'll be here." That night, as I lay in the guest room staring at the ceiling, I couldn't help but wonder if time would really make a difference. Could trust ever be rebuilt after it was broken? Or was this the beginning of the end? Weeks turned into months, and life settled into a fragile routine. Anna and I continued therapy, though each session felt like peeling back layers of scar tissue that neither of us was ready to confront fully. The wounds she'd inflicted were still fresh, and some days, the pain was almost unbearable. But other days, I caught glimpses of the woman I'd fallen in love with, the one who made pancakes on Sundays and sang off-key while folding laundry. It was enough to keep me tethered, even as I struggled with the weight of what she'd done. The kids remained blissfully unaware of the turmoil beneath the surface. Emily's curiosity about why I wasn't sleeping in the same room had waned, and Jake was too young to notice the tension. For their sake, Anna and I maintained the illusion of normalcy. We attended soccer games, went to school events, and even managed a family picnic one sunny afternoon. On the outside, we looked like a happy family. But behind closed doors, the cracks in our foundation grew wider with each passing day. Anna tried everything to win back my trust. She planned date nights, cooked my favorite meals, and filled the house with small gestures meant to remind me of the good times. I appreciated the effort, but it often felt hollow, like she was trying to cover up the damage rather than repair it. Trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt with flowers or a fancy dinner. It was deeper than that, and I wasn't sure it was something I could ever fully give her again. One night, after the kids were asleep, Anna found me sitting on the back porch, nursing a beer. The summer air was thick and warm, and the distant hum of crickets filled the silence. She sat down beside me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I know I've said it 100 times," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I need you to know how sorry I am, Mike. For everything. I know I broke your trust, and I know it might take years, maybe forever, to fix it. But I want to try. I want to be better, for you, for us, for the kids." Her words hung in the air, heavy and raw. I stared at the ground, my emotions swirling. I wanted to believe her, to take her hand and tell her we'd get through this. But the memory of her betrayal was always there, a constant shadow that refused to fade. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again," I said finally, my voice trembling. "And without trust, I don't know if we have anything left." Anna's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I understand," she said, her voice breaking. "But please, don't give up on us." I didn't respond, unable to find the words. Instead, I stared out at the darkened yard, the weight of the decision pressing down on me like a boulder. The next few weeks were a blur of indecision. Every time I thought about leaving, I pictured Emily and Jake, their laughter echoing through the house. I couldn't bear the thought of tearing their world apart. But staying felt like a betrayal of myself, a denial of the pain and anger that Anna's actions had caused. In the end, I realized there was no easy answer. One evening, as we sat at the kitchen table after another silent dinner, I looked Anna in the eyes for the first time in weeks. "I'm not ready to forgive you," I said, my voice steady. "But I'm not ready to walk away, either." Her eyes widened, a flicker of hope breaking through the despair. "Does that mean?" "It means we take it one day at a time," I interrupted. "No promises, no guarantees. Just, one day at a time." She nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll do whatever it takes." That night, I moved back into our bedroom. It wasn't a reconciliation, not entirely, but it was a step. We still had a long road ahead of us, filled with uncertainty and doubt. But for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope, a fragile, tentative hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way back to each other. As I lay in bed beside Anna, listening to her soft breathing, I couldn't help but wonder, was I making the right choice? Was it possible to rebuild something so broken? Or was I setting myself up for more heartbreak? I didn't have the answers. All I had was the present moment, and the faint hope that time would guide me to the truth. What do you think of Mike's decision? Was he right to give their marriage a chance, or should he have walked away? Would you have handled it differently? Let me know your thoughts.